Whenever I give serious thoughts towards cancelling my Netflix subscription, Netflix will, in turn, release an absolutely banger piece of media. So, really, whenever you watch something on Netflix you actually like, you should be thanking me personally by liking my videos and subscribing to my channel.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
When I first saw still images from Blue Eye Samurai, I'll admit I was a little bit skeptical about it. I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to art styles, and in general. And something about the character designs for that show, initially at least, really didn't appeal to me, but still images absolutely cannot do that show justice when it comes to how gorgeous it is. Those character designs are actually really great when they're in motion, and the backgrounds of the various scenes look like watercolors brought to life. To say nothing for how amazing the various fight scenes in the show are, managing to grip me in a way no show in recent memory has. And it managed to hit all the right buttons in my stupid little lizard brain to take me back to my childhood years watching Samurai Jack on Cartoon Network. Just, you know, with a higher budget and more boobs and blood than Samurai Jack ever had. But on the other hand, Samurai Jack had a much greater amount of great flaming eyebrows. So I'd say they're about even in quality overall. Blue Eye Samurai is absolutely amazing. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. If you have watched it, you're a certified cool guy. This ain't a review of the show, I'm only really here to talk about one thing, the singular character who, in my estimation, absolutely stole the show. The main villain. Of the first season at least, the man known only as Abijah Fowler.
See, no one murders so well as the British. It's our #1 export.
Anyone who's been around this channel before knows that I love me a good villain. I firmly believe that a decent villain can carry even the shittiest of stories. And in the past, I've gone to bat for characters defined as being pure evil villains. Those being, well, villains who are almost entirely devoid of any sympathetic qualities. There are those who define pure evil villains as being bland or one-dimensional, but personally, I just appreciate a bad guy who's free to be a complete and total bastard. And Fowler, I'm happy to say, feels as if he can stand shoulder to shoulder with other professional bastards like Dio in the field of pure evil bastardry. But I'll freely admit, when I first saw the guy, I really didn't expect a whole lot out of him as a character or as a main bad guy.
Look at this dude.
Between the time period that Blue Eye Samurai is set in, coupled with the themes that it establishes early on, such as colonization and race relations, I sort of assumed Fowler would be a stereotypical colonialist bad guy. That being a cardboard cutout who is wimpy, arrogant, powered by pure racism, and ultimately fairly easy to beat in a fight. You've probably seen the type at least once in the past, but I want to make it clear that colonialism is bad. That's my controversial statement for the week out of the way. I mean, I come from a post-colonial country, so I'm not gonna stand here and say you need to make colonialism look cool or that colonialist villains need to be cool, but you want them to at least be threatening in some way, or competent. And Fowler, man, that is one confident, scary, competent motherfucker.
A gun will never be as beautiful as a sword, but with a gun you can take any sword you want.
The first indication that there's more to Fowler than meets the eye comes in episode 4, which is probably his first solo scene in the series. It's a scene where he has a nice, private, heart-to-heart conversation with God. Now, I'd certainly like to play this entire scene in full, uninterrupted, but I also don't want copyright lawyers shattering my kneecaps. So, for now at least, we just gotta make do with the cards that we've been dealt.
I haven't spoken to you in some time. Wouldn't do you the dishonor of asking for a favor. But I believe there's something I can do for you.
There's something that's just really fascinating about a character who 100% believes that God exists and yet still knowingly does awful things. I know there are people who would claim that that's not an uncommon thing both in fiction and in real life, and that there are plenty of bad guys who are religious while still being, you know, bad guys. But there is a distinct difference between Fowler and characters like, say, Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The latter, even though they regularly do things that go flagrantly against their own religion, they'll still use said religion to justify whatever atrocities they're going to do. But Fowler, on the other hand, is under no illusions. He knows full well he's going to be killing plenty of people and actively relishes in that fact. But he's still taking a moment to say, well, maybe I can get God on board with this if I present it in the right way to him.
If this all goes my way, I will go ahead and take it for a sign that you tilted the wind to my back, and I will in kind build into my new station a pulpit. I will send for your priests to bring them your word and hand you a nation of souls.
And let's be honest, it does take massive swinging cojones to try and treat Jesus as a prospective business partner. That whole scene is the first indication that there's more to Fowler than meets the eye, managing to convey so much terrifying, ruthless ambition in the span of 3 minutes worth of footage.
It's no matter to me either way. I've got no use for souls.
But without a doubt, my favorite scene with Fowler, and perhaps my favorite scene from Blue Eye Samurai as a whole, comes from episode 7. Not only is it a scene that manages to convey just how smart Fowler actually is, with the man managing to smuggle 2,000 rifles into Japan undetected in a really ingenious way, but the way he talks about the 9 Years' War and how it shaped him into the man he is now, it says everything you need to know about the guy. It's absolutely captivating to listen to.
We starved. Everyone starved. Mouths on the dead stand green from chewing nettles. You get resourceful in a famine.
I don't know if Kenneth Branagh has done much voice acting work in the past, but he should do a lot more in the future, cause this is an amazing performance. As for what the 9 Years' War is, well, it's not all that relevant to Blue Eye Samurai, so just file it under England did it to Ireland, and that's all you really need to know. Boy, if I had a nickel for every time England subjected Ireland to a genocide, a famine, or an ethnic cleansing, I'd be a very rich man indeed. Honestly, as far as villain origin stories go, this one is pretty damn understandable. Being subjected to some of the worst atrocities that mankind can possibly create and coming out the other side thinking, you know what, I'm going to make sure everyone else has it worse than me from now on.
The rats ran out quick, fed my sister on my blood, kept her alive an extra 2 weeks. I didn't sleep for 3 days to protect her body from the starving till the ground thawed.
And it also adds a nice little layer when it comes to the previous scene regarding religion. It's entirely possible that Fowler believes that God exists. After all, atheism wasn't exactly common a few centuries ago. But in saying that, why would he pray to God? What did God do for him when his parents died? When his sister wasted away into nothingness?
I haven't eaten a single meal since my mind didn't go to that bite. It was the last thing I ever did because I had to. I control my life now. Every bite.
That line is just, so raw, so good. 10 out of 10 villain dialogue. And what I love the most about that whole sequence is that Fowler spends most of his screen time being casual and carefree, even when he's fighting someone to the death. But when he's talking about that whole sequence of events, thinking back to his childhood, losing everyone who he was ever close to, you can just hear the bitterness, the white-hot anger bubbling up under the surface. And it really goes toward my theory that you absolutely can have a pure evil villain who has a tragic backstory without tragedy being the thing that defines their entire character. The whole spiel regarding his backstory isn't being told so the audience feels sorry for Fowler, it's so that you understand exactly how he came to be the man that he is. And, frankly, if you told Fowler that you felt sorry for him, he'd either laugh in your face or kill you for disrespecting him. Far too often, villain backstories are given out as a cheap way to try and garner sympathy from the audience. And, in my experience at least, it's almost always completely trite whenever this happens. Oh yeah, this guy slow-roasted 17 puppies to death, but, you know, his dad never hugged him, so you gotta feel sorry for him.
Isn't that sad?
In Fowler's case, we learn his backstory largely as a way to understand how he came to be the way that he is. And there's a kind of terrible, cold logic to the whole thing. A man who went through absolute hell and emerged on the other side deciding that nobody would ever hurt him the same way ever again. I really hope it turns out that Fowler is Mizu's dad. I know that's probably a really weird thing to hope for, but let me explain. To me at least, the two parallel each other incredibly well, both of them enduring this immense hardship in their childhoods that molded them into very hard, dangerous people. The kinds of people who are willing to do anything to survive or get their own way. The main difference between the two being that Mizu found at least one person who was willing to help her at her absolute lowest point as a kid. Whereas Fowler, on the other hand, lost the only person he ever seemed to really care for in his whole life. I am beyond excited for Season 2, not only for the chance to see more action scenes or more of the established characters or to learn more about the plot as it unfolds, but above all that, I am just so incredibly excited and curious about seeing these two having to interact with each other for a prolonged period of time. What's their dynamic going to be? I really need to know. Good job, Netflix. You deserve a round of applause. Is what I would be saying if you didn't also cancel a whole bunch of other things I like, but, you know, Blue Eye Samurai is still good. Watch it.
After all these years, you've mastered the brush.
I hate painting.